Welcome back to Inside the Lines. Happy Tuesday. Some trade impact stuff to go over in the NBA with James Harden. Some more NBA model value picks later in the show, but we have some World Series. We have some college football, some Maction. So let's get into it. We'll start with Steven. Let's talk about this trade right off the bat. It's an interesting trade because in our sims, technically, you kind of have both teams just getting worse.
Yeah, I mean, so Philly is going to lose something with James Harden. His three-point percentage with Philadelphia was over 38%, which is pretty good. It was only like 33% when he was in Brooklyn. So that is going to, hurt. And the team actually commits fewer turnovers when he's playing the point, but not enough that, it's going to hurt that like that much. The flip side is the Harden value to the Clippers. If you knew Kawhi and PG, Paul George would be healthy all season, which we know that's probably the biggest if in all the NBA or all of sports, then I would have faith that Harden could continue to shoot efficiently from three-point range and be an effective point guard essentially for the team, passing and without a lot of turnovers. But given how unlikely that scenario is, his inefficiency might creep back. And I look at presence absence numbers, not necessarily plus minus on the court, because that can be biased by who's matchup, what the rotations and everything like that. I look at see how a team does with or without a player playing. In Philadelphia, they were good with him playing 69 games, 3.1 point differential. But when he didn't play in 27 games, it goes up to 5.8. So they were actually almost 3 points worse when James Harden played in point differential. And then where you see the betting impact was the ATS record. So when Harden was out, Philadelphia was 19-7 against the spread, 73%. Because the markets, odds makers, and bettors think that Harden's worth something. So they would adjust a point, 1.5, 2, 3 points when he was out, and then Philly would just cover easily. So those numbers are really the reason why the Clippers are not getting better in this scenario. Right. It's almost like that 2% chance of winning the championship. That's in the 8% chance that they actually have of staying healthy. So.
Right. And we were talking about this earlier today. Like, you look at this, and if he wants to impact this team positively, you need Kawhi to stay healthy, Paul George to stay healthy. He needs to stay healthy, upwards of 40% 3-point percentage accuracy. So the odds of all that happening, if that is the case, we give him a over 50% chance to win the championship.
And
odds
say, full disclosure, I've had it out for Harden for quite a while, since he cost me big time back in like 2008 or 9, whatever, when he was at Arizona State, because he's been a lifelong choker in postseason play going back to his March Madness days. And I think that he benefits from having a somewhat out of shape body with an odd beard. If he was fit and trim, you would not be marveled so much at the things he does. So much of the credibility he gets when he makes a good shot, it's like, oh my God, can you believe a chubby guy can do that? And so you just gotta look at the sheer numbers, and he's really not that impactful player.
Right. So, we've recognized this. Obviously, the odds makers love to get the sucker bets. They've already moved them to the 6th shortest odds to win the championship. We still have them 6th in just the West, let alone the whole league. We have them 12th in our sim. So be careful with how you're looking at this. There's definitely going to be some overhype about his impact, but we all have to remember how he performs in playoffs. And as a Sixers fan, I am quite familiar. So with that said, we're going to touch some more NBA later, but we're going to bring in John, and we're going to talk about the World Series a little bit, looking to get back on track here, aren't we, John?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the loss in the Diamondbacks yesterday, but we had an absolutely brutal beat with our 4.5 strikeouts play. We had on that main strike call that was totally missed against Nate Lau yesterday. We had our day flipped from 1 walk and 5 strikeouts and hitting that play to 2 walks and 4 strikeouts and losing both those plays. So it was a tough day yesterday, very brutal, but we're going to get back after today.
Yeah, definitely. So talk to me about this Diamondbacks pick again. It's always fascinating playoffs. You just keep hammering the team that lost, and I agree with the logic, but it's just a fascinating thing. Our model does like the Rangers. So what is it about the Diamondbacks here that you like?
It kind of does mess with your minds having to play a team after losing pretty much every time this postseason. It's something that you have to get over. You can't really let the recency bias get into it. You've kind of got to figure out how a team's really playing and why necessarily they lost, or why they weren't hitting, or why they weren't pitching. And so we look at the game today. It's the Diamondbacks around -108 is the best price right now. I like the Diamondbacks again today. They have a full bullpen game today, which they went with against the Phillies, and they actually allowed 5 earned runs in that game against the Phillies. So I don't expect the bullpen game to be too great, especially because they also used some relievers yesterday late in the game to keep it close. So it's not like they're all totally rested either. But on the other side, the Rangers are starting Andrew Heaney now, and it was supposed to be John Gray, but Max Scherzer got hurt in the game yesterday. So Bruce Bochy had to make a decision and decided to bring John Gray in yesterday. And it was the right decision because they ended up getting the win, and he got some valuable innings for them. But that means that they're extremely thin today. Andrew Heaney is likely only going to go through the order one time, maybe about 3 innings or so. And you have Dane Dunning for the Rangers after him, who's likely going to piggyback, maybe go 1-2 innings. But then the Rangers really have no one after that. We know how they're very susceptible if you can make their bullpen throw more than 3 innings for just their top 3. And that's exactly what's going to happen today. So the Rangers bullpen is going to get very thinned out and extended. And I think the Diamondbacks bats wake up today because yesterday is kind of understandable. Max Scherzer only went 1 time through the order. John Gray 1 time through the order. So the Diamondbacks didn't really get to see these hitters, but they absolutely dominated Heaney in the first matchup that it faced him this year. And I think they bounced back today.
Yeah, we'll talk about Heaney again soon. Our fantasy god, Jake, is asking you about fantasy points today. Over 7.5 here.
Yeah, I'm on the over 2.5 hits, runs, RBIs at plus money. They juiced it up or bumped it up today, I should say. But I still like that play. So I think he's definitely going to get over his fantasy points as well. We know he's probably going to get a hit.
Mm-hmm. Let's move over to your player props that you have for this game as well. We talked about Heaney here, and we like him under 2.5 strikes. What words? Strikeouts.
There we go. Strikeouts. 4 player props today, I should say. And the first one, we're going to go right back to these pitcher strikeout numbers because honestly, it should have won yesterday. But Heaney under 2.5 strikeouts is at plus money here, which I absolutely love. It's jumped around from plus 125 to plus 105, but I like it at 2.5. He's only struck out 1 batter in the playoffs, and that was against the Orioles in his first start. He's made 2 starts this playoffs, and he didn't strike out 1 in the second. And then he's made 2 relief appearances as well in the playoffs and didn't strike anyone out in those appearances. So I only think he's going to go through the order about 1 time today. So I don't think he's going to have that time to rack up the strikeouts, and he hasn't been a strikeout pitcher anyway. Leody Taveras under 0.5 total bases. He's looks completely lost lately. He was super hot to start the postseason, but he hasn't been getting hits lately. And I think this is more than worth the value at plus 145. Tommy Pham over 1.5 total bases is red hot. My only worry here is last time he got red hot in the playoffs, he had 2 great games and then completely fell off. But he's barreling everything right now and putting it in play. So I think he stays hot. And Gabriel Moreno over 1.5 total bases. One of the guys that I worked with when I was with the Blue Jays. So a little bit biased here, but he's the guy to play against the lefties. He's batting about 350 against lefties this season, 230 against righties. He should only have 1, maybe 2 at bats against the lefty and Heaney, but then he'll face a lot of second tier relievers against the Rangers. So I really like the chance at plus money there and his over 1.5 total bases.
Yeah, I like that too. Steven talking about how stubborn this team is when people cost us. I always think of UTEP. We have some teams really just in the back of our book on our bad list, but that's beside the point. All right, thank you for that. World Series picks. John's going to hop into the chat, give you guys plenty of more plays. We're going to bring in Jake. We're going to some Maction, and we got a lot of value. Oh yeah, happy Halloween, Jake. There we go.
Happy Halloween. We've gotta ride with our first Maction Tuesday today. I got my Jake Bortles, the combination of Blake Bortles and Gardner Minshew. So we're riding with Maction today, and our meteorologist Derek will tell you that it's pretty cold out there in the Midwest, in Ohio and in Michigan, and so that benefits running backs, and we love some running props today. We have Central Michigan quarterback Jace Bauer. His line's at 28.5. We have him at 44 rushing yards. And using my anthropology skills, was my major in college. I didn't I learned a decent amount, but my best thing I learned through anthropology was research skills. And I was reading some articles, and the biggest benefit in the cold weather is to running backs and rushing props. And because it's not easy to tackle when it's 35 degrees out there. So we have Bauer at 45 yards, and Northern Illinois gives up almost 5 yards per carry on the road this season. So we like that.
We'll
And
move
then
to Northern Illinois here.
exactly, we're going to Northern Illinois. Ontario Brown, he is a workhorse. He hasn't been great running the ball lately. He averaged just 2.5 yards per carry in his last game. But Central Michigan's run defense is not great. They're allowing about 5 yards per carry. That, along with the cold weather, we have him at 73 yards. So we have plenty of value on Ontario Brown today.
Yeah, and Derek mentioning, now we'll hop into the Buffalo-Toledo game. 50% chance of snow. Shouldn't stick too much, but still, just the temperature in general is a lot to drive these running back props here.
Yeah, and we're going to Derek's Toledo team right here for our next prop. Daquan Finn over 46.5 rush yards. We have him at 59 yards, and I really like this play because of this weather. And Buffalo's run defense has been pretty terrible this season. I think they're allowing 5.5 yards per carry on the road this season. Daquan Finn hasn't been running the ball a ton, but if you put that together with the weather and Buffalo's bad rush defense, I think he should 5.8 yards per carry on the road. I think he should run the ball more today.
Right. We'll move away from the Maction quick, but one game you want to mention to act now on with Troy, South Alabama.
Yeah, you could get this line still at 46.5. The juice is, the juice is on the under big time here. I think you get it under 46.5, but it's at like minus 125. But most places it's gone down to 45.5. So if you like the under, I'd get it at 46.5. Troy, like we saw last week, Troy is an under team. South Alabama has been mostly an over team, but their defense has been all right. And last week they were an under team. Their offense did not look great in that game last week. I know Nick was all over Louisiana last week, and I should have stuck with that because he was all over that. They nailed that. But I like the under this game. I just like fading Troy's offense, and I like Troy's defense. So I like the under, and I get it at 46.5 before it moves.
I like that. Let's take a bigger picture look into college football playoffs. Now we look at our Sportsline model, and you see on the left our sim percentage, their chance to make the college football playoff. These are our top 4 teams who we think will be making it. And then you compare it to the odds implied by the odds makers and the lines they have set. And you look at Ohio State, pretty big disparity between our odds and theirs.
Yeah, you might look at Ohio State and be like, they haven't played that well. Kyle McCord hasn't looked that good. But if you put it together with that, they already played Penn State this season. No, Tulane is not fifth, John. They've already played. They already played Penn State this season, and Michigan has to play Penn State and Ohio State, and so that's why we like Ohio State, because they already passed that one hurdle. Kyle McCord hasn't looked good, but he still has Marvin Harrison, or as Gus Johnson calls him, Maserati Marv. And I can't hear that one more time, or my head's going to explode if I hear Gus Johnson one more time. But it makes sense. And also, Ohio State owns the tiebreaker with their schedule. The tiebreaker is the other division in the Big Ten, their combined record. And as of right now, Ohio State owns a tiebreaker. So if Penn State somehow upsets Michigan and Michigan beats Ohio State, that means Ohio State would be in. So that's why we like Ohio State. And I think there's some value here. And the odds makers, the odds go up to 110%. So you're not going to find a lot of value betting on the college football playoffs pretty much anywhere. But right now, the value is on Ohio State.
Right. Yeah. So if we did have a value play for you guys, it would be Ohio State. We'll definitely take a bigger look at this later, break down why we have these 4 teams, why we don't have a team like Washington in there. I'm happy to answer any of those questions in the chat as well. So that's going to be all for college football for today. I'm going to bring in Steven. We're going to talk about some NBA, just 3 games today to talk about. Not that we technically have a ton of value on all of them, but definitely want to address them and answer any questions. And a lot of question marks in this game. We can also bring up the Odds Jam page that shows these moving lines. This line has been all over. We didn't know if Donovan Mitchell was playing. We didn't know what the situation was, but now it's seeming like he is.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about this line is if you want to pop up Odds Jam is a great site that we use for odds comparisons. And I know it might be a little tricky to see, but the Knicks, when we were planning today's show, the Knicks opened at -2.5 favorites. It had gone up to around 3.5, and then it had come back down to 2.5. And then I saw, and Donovan Mitchell's point over under was posted at 30.5. So it looked like this team was, coming back to Cleveland side. But then interestingly, you see now that you got 4s up there and 2.5. So there's still some question marks, but it looks like Mitchell's prop actually went up to 31.5, the line in most books. So I think people are assuming that, yes, he went from game time decision to questionable. He will play. He'll shoot a ton. It won't be very efficient. And so you can get, so the betting markets are reacting as if Mitchell will play, shoot poorly, score a lot, the Knicks will win and cover. We don't have any value on this at this point. Without Garland and Jarrett Allen, it's hard to tell which way to go.
Right. Yeah. The NBA not doing us any favors with keeping a lot of injuries and start-sit situations a secret. So hopefully later in the season, we'll be able to give you guys some more valuable player props and stuff like that. But as of right now, it's a little tough to understand who's playing and who's not. Similar situation here. Let's go to the Spurs in Phoenix. We would have a lot of model value here if we knew Booker was playing and was healthy, but the way the lines are moving, it seems like he's probably not.
Yeah, this morning it was a consensus line was 7.5 Phoenix. Now it's down to 6.5. You can still get a 7 out there. In the database, it's looking like presence absence number for Booker. So this is the last 2 years in Phoenix. He played 142 games, including playoffs. The team's point differential was +6 per game. In the 49 games he missed, it was -1.6. His +7.5 difference between those is superstar level. Jokic is like 10. But even Giannis is even better than Giannis's improvement. You can see how much better the team is offensively and defensively. Even shooting from 2 is that Devin Booker mid-range shot that's pretty deadly, combined with what he opens up for other players. They shoot 5 percentage points better from 2 with him in the lineup. And they even defend better. This is he's extremely important to the team. And so I would interpret this -6.5 as a indicator he's not going to play. You would assume that Phoenix thinks they can still beat Wembanyama and the Spurs without him, with just as long as Durant's there. In the Clippers Magic game, I think this is steamed towards the Magic. Ordinarily, a team playing on the road back-to-back would be the fade, but they played in LA versus the Lakers last night, so it's not really a travel day. The Clippers just did the Harden trade, so some of the assets they had that would be depth pieces in their rotation aren't there today. So maybe there's some feeling that the Magic are to play. Again, no real value here. We still lean Clippers. We did hit Lakers to win last night, and hopefully you got the Denver line too. We had Denver at -7.5 last night, and they ended up, the line closed at 8.5. But our viewers got it 7. They won by 8. So
never a doubt. Never a doubt.
But overall, the biggest bet is, for every game, how many starting players are last-minute scratches, and it's basically the line. It should be like 1 per game. It's ridiculous. I'm actually trying to get a second job as a consultant for the NBA and how to manage the rules of lineups and injury announcements for the purpose of boosting ratings among fantasy and gambling audiences.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fantasy and gambling audiences, that's really all we have time for today. But tomorrow, in complete honesty, there hasn't been a ton of college football line movement, not a ton of NFL. So tomorrow is going to be a day really for a lot of questions, fantasy questions, player prop questions, whatever it is you guys want. We'd love to get the live chat very active. And of course, if we have value and news to share, we will. But we want to use tomorrow a lot for questions. So with that said, that is all we have time for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Come prepared, bring your questions, and good luck with your bets tonight.